Welcome to Cursed, a bi-weekly podcast that investigates the liminal spaces, from everyday witchcraft to the haunted and the phantasmic. Hang out with us as we explore our personal experiences with the unknown and celebrate our craft.
And now, episode 5, Lady of the Underworld. And now for our Patreon shoutouts. In our Haints tier, we have Tori, Tamara, Rachel the Pickety Witch, Corey and Lane of New World Witchery, Alyssa, May, Joanne, Aaron, and Melissa as an honorable mention for being the first. And then for our Poltergeist, the big spenders, we've got Randy and Temple. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate everything you do to support us, whether that's spreading the word or giving us your money. We like both of those things. So now, the episode. So we're talking about Hecate, which you may have heard us mention once or twice before.
Yes.
In all 3 of our episodes so
Just
far.
a couple times.
And she's a big part of our practice and lives.
Mm-hmm.
Today we have not just me and Cricket, but Aidônaia.
Hi!
Who runs a shop down here, which is currently liminally
listed on the full status on its Facebook.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's still there. It's still a thing. And
Villages of people,
Right.
not a
Yep.
place.
so when we're like, oh, we're going to talk about Hecate, we're like, we have to have
Yeah.
her on.
Yes.
For better or worse.
Here I am.
Here I am.
Here I am.
Okay, so we should start with a little bit of history
Yeah,
of
like
Hecate.
what your name is and what her name is.
They already know us.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they?
Do they know you? Do we ever really know anybody? Well, I'm Bones.
Yeah!
Dat Cricket.
Hi.
And Hidera.
So,
Yes.
what kind of history do you have for us?
So much history.
I hope this soundboard
Not
works.
personal history, yeah?
Yeah, it's
we
personal.
can go into personal.
It's
No,
going to
we
get
don't.
really personal.
Personal up in here.
Right.
Oh, we get personal all the fucking time. I think the first episode was literally just us telling our personal ghost stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it seemed okay with people.
It might have gone over well. We
Right.
picked up a couple
Yeah.
listeners.
And this won't be long at all.
Yeah.
We don't have that much to talk about. I think we all should touch on our history with her. I think there's differences and there's some synchronicities. So we've all gathered here today for
We
Our
are
time,
gathered
yes.
here today.
our time with Hecate and Aidônaia
Hi.
and us. We're always here.
Yeah.
But we wanted to do a super long, probably 2-parter episode on our history because we talk about her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for her.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like shout out time. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Big hard shout
and
out
then
to
with
him.
Yes.
with your rededication or new dedication, however you want to put it, coming up,
I actually call it taking my vows.
taking her vows.
Yeah.
Which that's going to happen. We'll have pictures up of that when that happens.
Yeah,
on-
but you have to be, you
Yeah.
know, on Patreon to get the nudes.
Oh, yeah. If any of the nudes will be like
At least $20.
$20 and
Yeah.
up, right?
Otherwise, you get the one where I've got the Strophilos.
Yeah.
Strophilos pasties.
Yeah.
I love
Over
it.
the naughty bits.
I like it.
So
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
woo, spin that wheel.
Yeah, more, the more you pay, the
This
more
spit take. Oh my god.
you get.
Sorry, we're going to behave.
Yeah.
No, we won't. We're totally going to behave.
The torches will be in the way. And
Yeah.
then for every dollar increment, they move a little bit more.
I like that.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.
No, because then they're going to pay like, you know, $9 to get to
And then they'll back
most
down
of it.
to
And then
like,
they're like, fuck
yeah.
it, I'm saving $1.
They're like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. So, well, let's see. We could start with how we each encountered her, or she came into our lives and led us down this path.
Should we talk about how we found each other first? I think that'll be a quicker story.
Oh, probably.
Is
Yeah.
it quicker?
Just to get out of the
Okay.
way.
Well, so you own a shop
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
Huntersville, North Carolina.
Yeah. But I have an extended collection of hearts
Yes.
that I have collected from good people, like all up and down the East Coast, actually. I mean, we had people coming to Laughing Brook Spellcrafting and Ancestral Arts from as far away as Maine and Florida.
Wow.
And this one family who made the shop, the anchor stop on their road trip with their kids. I can't think of anything more hellish than that. But yes, they drove from Florida.
You're up there with like the world's biggest ball of yarn.
Yes.
All the roadside stuff.
Yeah, it's totally not at all like the whole Game of Thrones things. Game of Thrones. Hello.
It's probably you're thinking like
American Gods. Where they Shadow Moon and Wednesday go.
I was like thinking it was like National Lampoon's.
No, yes.
Laughing Brook Vacation.
Pagan version of
Halloween
Laughing Brook Vacation. Yes.
I like it.
That's exactly right.
But yes, American Gods.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not that exciting. Or maybe it is. I don't know. But we opened at Mabon, September 22nd in 2014.
Yeah.
And that's when each of you came into the shop uncoerced of your own volition.
Yeah, don't make it sound like we were pressured.
Yeah, no one pressured you.
No pressure. We lived like 5 minutes down the road, and we didn't even know it was there for a year. And then when we moved, like 30 minutes away, we're like, God damn it.
Right.
We didn't even know you were here.
I know. Otherwise,
but it reveals itself in time.
It does. Yep. It really does. And I've not done any print advertising. I've never...
This is not an advertisement.
No, definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
But it kind of is.
It kind of is.
Please go.
We have to find our new location because the shop burned itself out of the insufficient, substandard building that it was in.
It happens.
I know, it does. And I trust it. I trust what's happening because it is Hecate's plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For those that don't know, the shop had an electrical fire.
Yes.
In a weird circumstance right after you wanting to expand.
Yes.
And it was like, well, fuck, this shell's not working.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I trusted it. I mean, even the night where I stood on the sidewalk and watched the roof burn off of the building, while there was water and smoke damage inside the shop, nothing inside the shop burned.
It's like the meme where it's like, you're sitting at the table, this is fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is
fine.
Totally okay. It's totally
But it really was fine.
Yeah, it's really fine. Because I know that the next place we go just adds all that much more room for people to have their own becoming, which is what happened to you when you came to the shop. And you came to the shop, obviously for your own reasons, but we didn't know. Because practitioners, who are devoted or who work with Hecate don't necessarily wear a t-shirt that says, I worship, the Lady of the Keys. I mean, we didn't know who each other was until we had our first Hecatesia in the middle of November. I think the first one we had, because I usually do something at home. So I think it was probably 2015. November 6th,
I think so, yeah.
2015.
I think there's a picture on my Instagram that has the date, but I think it's something close to that,
But that's where we realized that each other were devotees who are dedicated to her worship and celebrate her divine gifts as our mother and ally and everything. And I think that it's important to find each other because it gives you a depth of understanding her when you see her ways of working in your life. I knew it was beautiful to see these new layers of her through your eyes and your experiences and stuff. But what was crazier were the things that we had in common.
Yes.
And the things, and how we regarded her and how we felt about her.
And it's usually shit you can't Google.
Yes. No, it's not.
You're not going to figure out.
It's the subtle, nuanced things that you're like, yep, that's mom. I mean, that's her stilo. And then we're like, wait, like, for example, how she you know, the impression she makes on us of being like 30 feet tall.
Right.
Yes.
We're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because we just feel our way through her. We don't think about wrapping language around describing her because we don't often talk about her that way to each other. So we don't need to language it.
Yeah.
Right. It's those little moments that you experience at your altar outside on the ground and you instinctively look up. And I thought, oh, that's my thing. And then I talked to Cricket and she was like, do you ever feel like I look up, she's so tall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like this presence, this
like
energy. Just
statuesque and towering.
Yes.
And you don't think, oh, I'm going to look up. You just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can tell when she's around.
And I was always concerned because I thought it was, you know, this sort of Christian sort of thing where it's like, you know, you're looking up to heaven and it's really, it's not connected to that. It's just her. But I always thought, you know, she's a chthonic deity. I should be looking at the ground. But no, other people are feeling her the exact way that I'm feeling her too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we even said the owls. Like when we start talking about how we first got in touch with her, mine was a barred owl.
Mine was a great horned owl.
And I'm like, owls are, when you read, and I'm using quotations with my hands, when you read Greek, like mythos and things like this, it's always, well, she's not the owl. That's
Athena.
Listen, she's not a campaign character for Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Not
like I said, I mean, you see this stuff, and like my first pull was to offer lavender, and you don't read that. But it makes sense when you think about it, because you're thinking like Mediterranean, her origins, and lavender would make sense. I saw honey, I left that, did the keys, but like the lavender was instinct. And mushrooms were instinct.
Right.
And I left all that. And I thought, well, now I'm getting into my like origin story. But no, I heard an owl that night.
Yeah.
But it didn't start as an owl. It started as I was laying in bed. It was cliche, but it was probably like 3 a.m.
Sure.
I woke up to laughter in the bedroom, which has happened before. But but no,
You're
I woke
so
up.
funny.
Yeah. But like you wake up to like children's laughter.
Yes.
And it's creepy. And then I'm like, wait, fuck, no, that's a coyote.
Right.
And it sounded like a coyote.
The
and
yipping.
then I realized it was a goddamn owl.
Yep.
And it was it sounded like it was in the room. Yep. It was right out the window. Went outside, didn't see it, and I thought, oh, fuck. Because at this point, I'm like agnostic, almost atheistic about things. I had just started like the path. Actually, we reached out to her to try to do spirit work, which I talked about in our first episode. And I worked with her and built that relationship for a couple months before I even decided to jump into witchcraft.
Right.
So it wasn't like I'm a practicing witch and I'm looking for the witch mother.
Yeah.
But she found me, and then I thought, oh, okay, well, with my familiar and everything, it's like, come on, it's about time. You're fucking like mid-20s. You've been thinking and looking in and reading and studying this your whole life. Just do it.
For too long
Just do it. Right. And it was like,
level up.
Yeah, it was finding a path, coming home, and it wasn't until later it was like, oh, I can see owls being connected to her. Yeah. But nobody ever said, this is how she comes.
Right.
And then I had a dream where she came to me as a black snake in the middle of a forest, coming out of a pit that was smoldering, and spoke to me. Yep. And I can't remember what she said. That's bad, right? But no, I don't. Maybe I'm not even supposed to remember.
No, I mean, it's often you're left with an emotional impression.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
and it was just this black
happens.
snake. Yeah. And so that was kind of my introduction. And then we found out when we went to, and you told your owl story.
I did.
And people were talking owls. And the barred owl, we thought, okay, well, me being who I am, I'm like, this is just at that house. I'll move and I'm going to be sad because they're not going to be around. And it wasn't like a couple weeks in when I was struggling with something and they were there. And in all my time, I used to live in the middle of nowhere in the woods.
Right.
Never heard barred owls. Never heard any owls. And I would think that was so weird because I had to look up what kind of owl was making this noise. And then I would see them everywhere. And I still see them. They fly over the house. And it's like, that was not a part of my life before.
Right.
And to know you both had owl experience, it's like, we talked about, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Because you have to experience it. You really do.
Yeah.
And I remember at our first Hecatesia class gathering that you were asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
where,
hey, you guys know anything about owls?
Yeah, it's like, are you getting this symbolism of owls everywhere? And everybody just piped in and was like, yeah, and you sort of talked about how, when you move over to a new continent and there's new flora and fauna, things shift and change. Yes. So I that always fascinated me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her origins, you might not, in Turkey, might not be connected. Are there Turkish owls?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean, I think there should be.
They're probably like little...
Because they're a variety of predator, which I fucking adore. Mm-hmm. In reference, but I guarantee there's Hecate, no like fucking it feels like her her Brimo aspect. Mm-hmm. Predatory, yelling, screeching, that type of thing.
But then you also have to look at like everything the owl represents.
Yeah.
Wisdom, unknown, mysterious.
Sure. And the fact that the Triformas aspect of Hecate, one of the earliest, has her looking in 360 directions. The Triformas allows her to see everything, whether that's geographically speaking, in terms of seeing through a location 360 degrees, or seeing through time.
Yeah, this wasn't
past, present, future loop.
The like neo-pagan triple goddess 3 form. This was legitimately.
Yes,
I'm going to look in every direction,
as an owl can do.
Right.
I mean, it can see in 360. So of course, and we use the word emissary that night. That she will announce herself with this beautiful processional of raptors and yipping of coyotes, and
we always hear the dogs barking.
Yeah.
Which is cliche, but that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
That one time my demon familiar called on her and the lightning bugs, which to me looked like torches, just all kind of...
Sure.
And they were just everywhere. And I mean, I think that symbolism, not only per person, also location-wise, you're going to use what represents and what is around you. So, we have the coyotes and stuff, the barred owls, but I think that's the difference, is like what we're trying to say is it's a personal experience.
Yeah.
Just because you don't see a black sheep walk in front of you doesn't mean you did not experience Hecate.
Right.
You might have seen a mouse. So, I mean, but it has to have connotations for you. Mm-hmm. And she's going to connect to you on your level. Mm-hmm. That is sometimes shared.
Yeah.
And sometimes very personal.
Well, and you don't know what you get from coming together as a group the way that we do, is that nuance, is that subtle, oh hell, because so much of it is held internally and personally, that not until you are with other Hecateans that you can say, hey, do you notice? And back to what you were saying, what we were talking about earlier, how she's like enormous, and we feel as though we have to look up, as though
it's not just because you two are really short.
Yes. Right. Well, I am super short. People know that.
Well, same here.
Far and wide. But when we feel like children at her knee, that speaks of not the power part. Yes, the power paradigm. Let's just be honest about it. But the fact that she is our nurturer.
Yeah.
She is the authority.
And there's
to whom
her
we owe
mysteries
deference.
Are really high on a shelf and you can't reach them.
Well, but also too, and your comment about her being a chthonic goddess. But the fact is, she is of the earth as a chthonic goddess, and of course we've got the psychopomp, escorting the spirits of the dead to hereafter. But also the fact that she's a titan.
Yeah,
she can be a goddess of titanic proportions and still be of the earth and the underworld.
Yeah.
So you don't think about it like, oh, hell, she's a fucking titan. Yes, she is a titan. But she is no less chthonic simply because, she reaches
and it's
the heights.
Now that I have experienced other deities in the same way that I've experienced her, where they've come to me and spoken with me and walked with me, it's very different because she is very titanic. And, I've recently had visits from Persephone, and she is about my height. She's, on that same sort of level.
Right.
But there's a different sort of demeanor around her than there is around Hecate.
Yeah.
And, Hecate is much more imposing. Even though Persephone has a lot of the same attributes and qualities that Hecate does, and a lot of the same associations, she just presents herself very differently. So it's very
as close a
interesting.
relationship as we all have with Hecate, and as normal day to day it's become, there's always that tingle on the back of your neck, like, oh God. Yeah. Like I am in the, and it's
I'm in the zone. I'm there,
and it makes you incredibly giddy and a little bit terrified.
And not in a like, oh, there's any reason to like fear her.
No, it's awe,
but it's just like
utter
holy shit,
awe. Like I'm, goosebumping now.
Yes,
just thinking about the feeling that overcomes us. It's very visceral and it's very new and unfamiliar because, to be honest, we are surrounded by the profane.
Right.
Surrounded by the profane. So you're in her presence when you have feelings that you don't have the reins on. You are,
and it's not like I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to expect something. It happens.
Yeah,
it's either going to happen or it doesn't. And there's some times where, like, she's far or a distant one at times, which we've talked about all of our emissaries before too. Each other, spirits, familiars that we have, but you always feel that twinge.
Sure,
but when she's right there, like. That's a completely...
it's primal.
It very much so is.
Now, this time of year, I really get the chthonic, Underworld.
Yeah.
But,
much.
like, in the summer here in North Carolina, in the South, all the storms, like, that is how I feel her, like, the very...
Yes.
Because, again, she's a storm goddess as well.
Yeah.
And when I first experienced her, that's how she came to me, is I'm, getting all of these experiences where, she's literally, I'm looking up the etymology of my name for a paper, and there she is. Like, I cannot escape her. She is everywhere. And it's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Because I was terrified.
Yeah.
Because she's a little bit...
intimidating?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And, I was very hesitant, but...
As we both play with our rings.
We're like, self-soothe.
Yep. And when I first invoked her and spoke to her, a incredible thunderstorm came out of nowhere. Nowhere was it on the radar, on the horizon, anywhere. And all of the sudden, it started pouring and thundering and wind and like you would not believe.
It was a wild unleashing.
Yeah, our storms get fucking crazy here.
Yeah.
And you can tell when...
Yeah, it's divine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a power...
And leaves being ripped off of trees and limbs falling in the yard and things being knocked over, and it's just buffeting against you. And there's no part of you that doesn't feel her there. And it's awe-inspiring, and you are made aware of how little you actually
I'm usually like,
of power.
Okay, I really want to soak all this in, but also like, don't let a tree fall on my house. Because where I live, the pin oaks fall all the time.
I'm sure they do. You're like, can we just not crush my house?
But like, I still want to be in it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And they're already awe-inspiring on their own.
Often, especially during the summer and right around August during one of her feast days, which is actually all about storms.
Yes.
I tend to get really, really restless. And I would often feel, because I was in a situation where I needed to escape a lot, I would often go and drive and find a park or find some nature somewhere. And I would
dig a hole and crawl in.
Yes!
And
absolutely, yes.
I would find that those times that I would get really restless are times when a storm is on the horizon and I needed to go find her somewhere, So that's definitely a huge aspect.
But there's almost, when it gets dark, it feels liminal.
Very.
When it's overcast and dark. Because, I've got Oregon blood in me, but that's what I love.
Yeah,
it's
because you
can't
be sure what time of day it is. Like, if you woke up from a nap and the sky is yellow and black, and you're like, oh, have I slept through to tomorrow? Is it nighttime or is it 1
These are very
PM?
common themes with us.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
But honestly, isn't disorientation one of her hallmarks?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I've
you don't get the comforts of knowing if you're in a designated space of time or locationally.
Well, back in, 2016 when we had the almost total solar eclipse?
Yeah.
I felt her like you would not believe during that point. And it's just that point of, when you're looking at your phone, you're looking at a clock and it says that it's, 3 p.m. or something.
Right.
But it's dark.
See, because we're wanting to go into like the shit you don't hear about. How, she was a sun goddess. She's also not the moon personified, like some people will conflate. She's just of the moon because you think nocturnal. Her horde is with her. All of that.
But her name,
right?
Worker from afar or distant and shining light. Planets don't shine, which means she is a star, otherwise known as a sun.
Yeah.
So she's.
I think if you go back far enough, you'll see that she was tied into pretty much everything. And then when you talk about her being like the world soul,
yes,
almost that Christ-like, of course,
Blech.
But better.
But that was that was just like plagiarism after everything else. But in an example, it was kind of like she's your bridge to everything.
Yes.
You talk about when you get into when the Greek adopted her, Zeus revered her, and it's like, you know what? Keep your shit.
Yes.
I'm not taking nothing from you.
Yeah.
And I'll do it to anybody else, but yeah.
And what Josh is referring to is the origin story where the Olympian Greeks tell the story that Zeus allowed Hecate to keep her powers, which is adorable. But the fact was, she was an imported goddess from Thrace, which is an island off the coast of present-day Turkey. She was so well established in North Africa, Greek, and Sicily. So all of these Mediterranean cultures held her as this goddess. And then when they import her into more specific geographic locations, they find that in their mythos they have to get their gods to give permission to these older gods to be folded into their pantheon. So nothing frosts my ass more when people say that she's Greek. Please don't let the smooth taste fool you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this ain't
she can
an Olympian construct. But I wanted to bring up a point that you made about crawling into a ditch that you've dug in the woods. If you are led that way, absolutely do it. And I think that was so important in our first Hecatesia as a group, that there are still people who fight their knowing. And I'm saying knowing with a capital K. They don't know that it's okay to act in ways that would fucking confuse other people.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Even other pagans. That's one of the things that really hit me about going to your shop for the first time, because I'd been working in another metaphysical shop up until that point.
Right.
And it was a shop where things were very love and light. And when I would say that I am working with Hecate, people would sort of take a step back.
Yeah.
Or they would misunderstand her.
Right.
And I never quite felt comfortable or like I was doing it right. Even though I was led in all of these different ways that I now realize are totally correct. I was just not receiving the validation that I needed, because I was being questioned around every corner by these other people that in the shop that I was working with.
Right.
So when I actually came to your shop and you understood and you were able to say, yeah, no, I do the same thing.
Right.
That
it's cool. It's fine.
It opened so many doors.
Yeah.
It opened so many doors.
Yeah. And it lets you explore her more fully when you realize you have others that are exploring her too. It's not a permission so much as a validation of worship the way
there's no
you
permission.
Feel it. Exactly.
Asked or given. It's just
But don't you feel more satisfied and grounded and peaceful in knowing that other people
Right. No,
dig
it is
ditches in the woods
Yeah.
and cover themselves
Like
back up
validate-
like fucking
Hell yeah.
idiots, you know?
Validation is always
Yeah.
good, and it there's strength with the community and
Yeah.
finding out that other people are on the same path. And
Mhm.
I think it also, for somebody like me who questions everything, even
Mhm.
when I'm doing it, I question everything from what, is going on with my magic, with
Yeah.
Hecate, with my familiar, with all this stuff.
Or even
And
with
then-
your personal life. Like,
Right.
what's that upheaval about?
And then so
then
when you
you're
have
like, I
somebody that
trust
can,
it.
confirm that or
Yeah.
say, hey, I do that too, then that skepticism kind of like wanes
Yeah.
a little bit and you're like, okay, I got it. Like,
But do you both feel, I mean, I feel an eagerness
Mm.
to hear how you all experience her personally.
yeah.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
get geeked about it.
Well, that's why
we're
doing
maybe I'm
this,
a
'cause-
big fucking
yeah.
fangirl.
Because we definitely
I
want to...
definitely am. And that's one of the
I will-
things, too, is, I was looking online for a lot of resources, and a lot of it was saying, she's Greek, or, she's a triple moon goddess.
Her
or,
colors are blah, blah, and blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, quit with the fucking correspondences.
Yeah. And it's like, I want to know the nitty gritty. I want to know how other people are experiencing her.
Yes.
And that's
me
one
that.
of the things that really led me to a blog that we're all three super geeked about. And I think one of our listeners
We love
is
her.
writing.
Yes.
So Cyndi Brannen, that's one of the things that really drew me to her
Mm-hmm.
writing, is because she was writing about Hecate in a way that nobody else was.
Right.
And that I think all three of us as practitioners, who'd been doing it for a while, really understood.
Well, and I think the buzzword that's important, and also Greek, is Gnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, of course, there's a place for academia. I mean, without academia, we wouldn't have the excavation of the temple in Legina. Without
Mhm.
academia, we wouldn't have the Orphic hymns. We wouldn't have, the rites of, Demeter and Persephone and that abduction story. I mean,
Mhm.
without academia, we wouldn't have the footing
Mm-hmm.
to explore the Gnosis. But the Gnosis
Exactly.
of course, is as important.
And when we
as
say
that.
she's not Greek, it doesn't mean she didn't play a gigantic role
Absolutely.
Oh,
in,
absolutely.
in
yeah.
shaping that. And,
Right.
and look how many temples might have been dedicated to another one, but had like the Hecate all, in
Exactly.
the back. Because it's like, well, she's guarding. And so I
Yeah.
think that's important to know that it's not just, and we're getting a modern day resurgence, I
Yeah.
think,
Mhm.
of her followers. She's not gone anywhere.
Right.
But I think people are looking for, they're coming to terms with the shadow, the darker aspects.
Sure.
And I mean, all of it's liminal, all of it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And who's the gatekeeper? Who
Right.
fucking holds all this
Mhm.
shit? And so I think people are seeing that, and whether or not, like my wife, when we got on this, she was led, but then she was kind of handed off
Mm-hmm.
from Hecate.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she reveres her, loves her,
But
was guided by her, but only to a certain point where me, it's like,
Right.
nope,
yep,
you're
you
mine.
stay with me.
you stay here because
Exactly.
you got some shit to do. And I'm like what?
Well, and I think that's important for listeners to know that it's not cheating on her
Mhm.
Right.
if you are led to, and the language we've used around it is do an internship
Yeah.
with another deity.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I found myself, like the reticent child who doesn't want to walk into preschool on the first day. It looks back at its mother like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to go be okay? And she's like, listen, this wouldn't happen unless I'm the one that
And she's
signed it."
already driving
She
away.
says, exactly. She's driving away going, peace, bitch. No,
Yeah.
just kidding. But, I mean, Hecate is like that mother who drops you off with this chapter in your
Right.
life that you're supposed to explore and grow and know, because isn't what she presides over transformation.
Yeah.
She's giving permission slips on all this stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I freaked the fuck out when I'm basically, in a vision I had with her, I'm called to the principal's office. That's exactly what it felt like. And I'm standing, I walk into this space and there's Odin on a throne. And Our Lady is toweringly tall and black, and I can't see her face, but I stand next to her, to her left, and I become aware that she has had a conversation with Odin about me. And I'm like, oh, God.
Please
You know,
report
like,
to the...
Yeah.
So I freaked out, but what she was saying and what I understood from that is these things don't happen unless she orchestrates them. She choreographs the dance that we are in with her. And even if she shops us out to Lilith in my case, Odin in my case, or the deities with whom you all work, and you mentioned Persephone in yours. It's
and
not
Lilith in mine as well.
And Lilith, but it's not cheating. And I think that that's a vestige of the guilt of monotheism.
Right. Yes, because that is a ripple effect from that. Why would she give a shit? If you're bettering yourself, doing the work that you want to do, and self-growth, and I mean, why would she care?
She's all about that.
But I don't think, to experience her, like we're saying, you have to be a devotee. If she's calling on you, it might not be to be a priest or a priestess of her, but it's, hey, I'm going to show you something. Yes, and if you don't want to listen, well then, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But I'm going to make it known that
I'm going to put the experience on your buffet table.
Right.
For you to experience or not.
And it's best to just go with it. You can fight it, but it'll, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Because when you go against it, not only are you robbing yourself of a very important lesson or skill or, idea or awareness of something, you're denying her power in your life to transform, transition, and level up.
Yeah.
So you're robbing yourself.
Yeah. Because she is literally handing you a key. She is placing that key on the table in front of you, and it's your choice if you want to pick it up and figure out which door it goes to and unlock that door and experience what is behind it.
Yes. And whether that's Lilith, whether that's a different version of you in a career space, whether that's you trusting whether or not to go forward in a relationship with someone, whether that's a friend or, a lover. But the fact is, she is about laying rooms of experience in your life, and then you decide to use that key or to be that key, to give yourself that.
Right.
And I think what we're talking about, the three of us, is the concept of trust. Do you fully and completely trust that she is giving you what you need to move forward into a fuller expression of who you are in this world? You're not just this two-dimensional box. You're something fuller.
And you're an experience, an ever-growing and ever-changing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's some shit. Like, she won't just be like, oh, you should try this. Apply for this shit. Like, she will put you through some shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like, fuck.
We're like, why does it have
to be so hard?
I know.
Yeah, where we've talked about before, where it feels like you just get hit upside the head by a 2x4 covered in nails. You know, like sometimes it be like that.
Yes, it does. Because she's listen. I mean, she's not soft-handed.
No.
If you want soft-handed, you go somewhere else because that's not how Hecate rolls.
And she's not a hand holder.
No, not at all.
She's like, I mean, go.
Go.
Like, there might be a torch off in the distance.
Right.
Yeah.
You have a key, but like that dark path, you can walk it with others.
Yeah.
You can do that, but
I don't think that's a contradiction to her character.
No.
She's, the way that her softness, like the Hecate Talos, which means gentle and smooth, that aspect of her, for me at least, I perceive it in that her compassion is always present. Her holding us is always in place, that she cares enough constantly and forever about us to give us the things she knows will brighten us or refine us.
It's no mistake that we call her mom.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it's always felt like that motherly compassion and that. But it's also
the sternness and the discipline of it.
It's
it's
I can do this. I can do this stuff for you, but what the fuck are you going to learn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why am I even wasting my time?
Right.
Yeah.
Just that feeling that you don't hear this. You hear either the people try to make her fit into the like brighter / like, for lack of a better term, love and light kind of aspect where they're like, she's so motherly, and she is. But
and she has a lot of light aspects too. You know, when we talk about her as the shining one, or you know, the torches and all of that. And when we look at a lot of her epithets, a lot of them are light based.
Right. And then when you talk, but then you've got the people who say she's such a dark goddess and they misunderstand. And so they don't think you can have both. But she's all of that. And she's all of that and more.
Well, you can't have one without the other. You'll go crazy.
Yeah. Like with my journey, when I started and connected with her, she was so present and so strong in the beginning. And my familiar, who I've had for most of my life as an internal voice.
Yeah.
And always been kind of a co-possession. And I had no idea what it was. And it got me through some shit.
Because you trusted.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, at times where I felt like I had no one.
Right.
And at times where I'd left Christianity because I was not down with the religion part of it. I was like, yeah, there's no correlation between this and the teachings of Jesus, so I'm out.
Right.
And I was always raised in that compassionate idea of what everybody would think, oh, this would be nice if Christianity was like this. You know, like if it was actually centered around Jesus. That would be weird, though.
But I feel like her aspects of, I mean, I think people have gotten to this horrifically disabling aspect, binary thinking about her as being a dark goddess, as though it is surreptitious and bad and negative, because in conjunction with the Atalos aspect, the gentle, soothing, nurturing, comforting, holding aspect of her, aren't we describing the womb? Aren't we describing a place of dark, warm comfort, feeling
growth,
love,
healing,
growth, phenomenal growth, and she presides over that incubator experience of us all. The primordial swim from the universe into the womb, that is an entire chapter of our development that is dark. There's no light source.
Yeah. Well, it sounds lame because, I mean, I can look back and say, oh, I saw these little guiding nudges down my whole path. Right. And of course, having Ava, which is my familiar, it's not April Ludgate, but it kind of is. But at the same time, it's like...
He's not wrong.
Yeah. So that kind of went through, and then when I found Hecate, she was gone. And I was like, oh, well, this must have been like Hecate, some kind of emissary, whatever, within me.
Yeah.
And so I walked that path, and I thought at the time, like, oh my God, she would be totally into this. This is her thing. She's been trying to get me to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's always been there, and it's like losing half of yourself.
Yep.
But then I learned that I was 100% myself.
Yes.
And I think I spoke to you, and I was like, something, I can feel her, but she's not internal anymore. Right. And it's almost like she was removed and kind of like, I say trapped, but it's like, okay, now you don't need to be 50-50, and you don't need to be almost like I would think a spirit box or something you put something in. It's like she is meant for more, and she took the journey too. Yeah. I mean, she's experienced a ton, but she's always been like this underworld nymph, like daemon of Hecate. Yeah. And then when you look into the history from the Greek aspect, you see all these like spirits and demons and things like that. It's part of her horde.
Yes.
And so she, I had to learn how to work with her again, like a bridge. Yeah. And of course, we'll go into depth when we do familiar series.
Yes.
But
it is coming, we promise. Right. I know we've been talking about it.
So she comes and like back as this force that you're like, well, try sending her. And she's able to go. She's able to fulfill this.
Yeah.
And she's always there, but she's not internal. She's not trapped. And whereas, it's a lot.
I wouldn't say trapped. I would say contained.
Contained. Yes, that's a better word.
You. Yeah, because trapped makes it seem like you ain't got no key, bitch.
Well, see, and at the end of it, what led me on this path was, hey, so Hecate, once I got to that, is kind of like, I'm here. I'm always here. I always will be here. Right. You can always call on me. However, you two can do this well on your own.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit back. You do your thing. And like, that's what we say any good parent kind of guardian would do, where you have to make your mistakes. You have to forge your path.
Yeah.
I'm not removed, but yet I'm not going to shelter you, and I'm not going to guide you through it. And I think a lot of people are scared of that, because think of where we come from religion. Yeah. That's, you're worthless. You're nothing. You have no power unless you rely on me, and you're fucking lucky if I even want to do that.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of like, you're fucking magnificent. You're powerful. Go do the shit.
Well, and she
do the things I want you to do.
She gives you theaters in your life within which to change. And so she is that nurturer that says, this lesson may not be fun to learn. However, you have to know your way around it, your way through it. So I'm going to plop you down into these set of circumstances, and you're going to learn what you're made of, and you're going to learn your way around this so that when it happens to you again in the future, you're like,
and you can do this the hard way?
Nothing.
Yeah. It's like you can do it the hard way or the harder way.
Yeah.
But you're going to do it.
And
you have to.
To use a New England metaphor, as I am from Massachusetts, it's no different than when I was like 6 or 7 or 8 years old, wearing this impossible fucking snowsuit. Couldn't move much. It was
very
just,
like A Christmas Story.
Yeah, very. I looked like a little star in my immobilizing suit. But it felt like when you're on top of the hill with your sled, and there's no one there to push you. There's no one there to get you started off on the sled, and so you have to figure out if you want to sled down this hill.
Gotta scooch.
You've got to scooch. You've got to dig your heels in. I mean, all of this metaphorically is she puts you on top of that hill, and sometimes she'll give you the startup push where she shoves you as hard as she can.
Sometimes it doesn't take much.
Yeah,
and you learn your way down that hill. You learn your way. When to lean.
Right.
When to sit down, scrunch down and go faster. I mean, she gives you these opportunities and sometimes the startup push to go through these experiences, knowing that by the time you reach the bottom, you're in full possession of a new consciousness, of a new skill, a new aptitude. And damn, don't you feel amazing on the other side of that? I mean,
and then you realize, this is just the top of another hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're like, that's good. I was, I caught my breath, but now I'm going to trudge.
So I'm not at the bottom?
No,
okay.
Not quite yet.
But yeah, I think that's in every aspect. It's not just a magical sense. Yeah. It's in relationships with humans.
Yeah.
Oh,
or
definitely.
Spirits and demons.
Yes.
Or deities.
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also, between work, everything else.
Yeah.
It's just her teachings that she's going to give you or just open the door for you goes through all of that. It's not, we're not just talking about I have to have her for this spell or ritual.
Right.
And I think she's big on the instinct part of it. I've never been one I tried the whole ritual, it's got its place for me, especially. Sure. But as far as doing the whole,
it's not going to look like, a ritual from 3,000 years ago. We're not all going to be draping ourselves in white linen.
But I think it all goes back to that primal feel that we all feel with her. It's some of the most connected times and powerful I feel is when my hands are in the dirt, burying something or leaving her offering, and to let whatever consume it or let it decay there if it has to. I have an altar that's normal. I have one downstairs. I have a lot of altars for her.
I do too. In the
but some of them have
house.
different. There's different moods. Like the one upstairs we have, it feels very sacred. That whole room is made
it's
that
a
way.
temple.
Well, it is shared with Morgan because of my wife. We have our altars, and then we have our respective altars. On either side. But that feels like, this is where we do herb work and all this. But then downstairs, the altars we use most are in the living room because it's our daily lives and we put our stuff there.
It's
our
the working altar versus the devotional
altar. And then
altar.
when I leave that offering, it doesn't feel good to me unless it's out back at our outside altar.
Yes.
We have one of those too.
Yeah, and I've got a Western altar as well.
Yeah, it's on the ground. And even putting it on that little slab we have, I put it on the dirt.
Yeah.
Because it just it feels like that's where it's going to...
She wants it.
Yeah. No plate. No, just in a hole.
Right. And sometimes she wants us in the hole.
In that hole.
In the dirt.
Yeah. Just, put a little bell in case somebody needs to find you.
Yeah. Maybe.
If you can't exude,
Don't get up until she says to get up.
But I think that is a good metaphor for how I think we've all felt. It's you feel buried, you take that journey, but you're also the one who's with a help, but you're going to be the one who exhumes yourself.
Yes, true. And it's self-driven.
And I really want to talk about what we talked about last year and how, which hit home for I think all of us, but was the snake metaphor that you use, you've got to shed your skin every year. And this is the perfect time of year to do it.
Yes.
The dead season. And that's why we want to do these in November, as you'll see.
And we talked about the Dracana aspect of her for quite some time because you know you're ready for that transformation over which she presides.
And stuff starts feeling tight.
Tight and itchy, just feels ill-fitting. Mm-hmm. And that could be a job, that can be a relationship you've outgrown, that can be...
magical practice.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I need to change it up. You know?
I need to start a podcast.
Yes. Yes.
And shit just pops up like that. And you're taking on a roller coaster. I know when you mentioned something about a podcast and like, oh, and I was like, I mean, I'll do it. And I was kind of like, huh? And then it's like, and then it was just like sledding down that hill. Or like a roller coaster. It's like the owls, the fucking, you had all kinds of sightings. It's like every little twist and turn. It's like, you guys are doing what I want you to.
Yes.
All kinds of canids and foxes and coyotes and it's still happening.
And it was always this communal feel. It always felt like this group endeavor where you might hear our voices the most, but like that's not what we're. And it felt similar to how you've described how you felt with it. It feels like an opening or a platform for others to have a voice,
absolutely,
and to learn and feel like you have a community if you can't get out.
Well, she is a goddess of uniqueness, and I say that because of her. Pinprick of light. I mean, she is the far and distant shining one. She is what in some stories, Asteria is her mother, Nyx is her mother. Mm-hmm. She has no children. So she is this singular, I'm not going to say disembodied, but I suppose you could, existence and being that is in and of herself. And her driving core message is to be exactly that, to be yourself, your sovereign
self. I was just going to say, when they said, oh, she was a virgin, it didn't mean, oh, blah, 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 like, fuck all that. Yeah. It meant, I'm nobody's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about right before we started recording this, was the sovereignty that is also becoming a very front and center, like,
I am my priority. I am my responsibility. I crown myself. Mm-hmm. I hold myself responsible and accountable. She is all about improvement in your nation of one, right? Mm-hmm. So she, what was interesting in my relationship with her, because I feel as though she asks all of us, part of her MO is that she asks all of us to put ourselves in places where we stand to learn something and acquire a new level of being.
That's a lot of why it's uncomfortable, too.
Yes, it is, because who wants to move from a space of things are working pretty good, I don't want, and I think that may very well be part of the reason, because the shop happened because she bid me to do it. Mm-hmm. She said, I need you to do this. You need to show people and provide a space that allows them to become them.
And it grew fast. And you're like, oh, I've got this spare room now with a gallery.
It was insane. It was insane how quickly, when you're on the side of right, that you're listening correctly to her, because she throws everything at you to guide that process, to improve that process, it's like she's putting tools in our little Dora the Explorer backpack that we can use to make more of this happen for people. Because the shop, I used to tell people, I'm just the priestess sweeping the steps of the temple. I'm not the goddess here for you to worship. She is. Yeah. This is her house. And I was bid to create a space where people could come and be encouraged and empowered to find more of them.
And I know it's out there, but we all said, and you've heard a million times, you walked into that shop and it wasn't like anything else. You're like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is a place for me. This is home.
Yeah.
And everything from the ingredients you have to the resources you have to the welcome you have. There's always groups in there. There's always discussion. You had the ancestral altar. You had your Hecatean altar. And it's just...
the horn god altar.
The community altar.
And it's just that feeling. And even if you were in there and looked at something, I know that's me, a dozen times, it just, it's that energy you're soaking up.
Right.
And you're like,
It's hers.
Stuff's leading. It's like, oh shit, now I need that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with everything going, I mean, the future of what it will be, and still is.
I'm excited.
Even though it's liminal.
Well, and it's, what's amazing to me is the lessons that still unfold from listening to her. You think you know what her motivation is. You think that you've pinned down, oh, she must be trying to teach me X. First of all, she doesn't try to teach anything. She's showing you something, whether or not you're smart enough to open your eyes and see it and feel it and understand it. But the hubris is comical, right? Where you're like, I got all this figured out. She's trying to show me blah. No, she's not. No. Because I find later that, when the fire took the building in which our little community hotspot was located, get it? I realized that is two things. One, that we, the village, the people who move through her, incubus, her place of change, is growing past that space that we were in. But also she showed me that it wasn't about the space at all. It was about pagans finding pagans, loving pagans, supporting each other. And I was like, holy shit. It kind of feels like that ridiculous line from Thor and Ragnarok that Asgard is a people,
right?
Not a place.
Well, it wasn't like, oh, the village and community just fizzled out because there was no shop. It's come together in support.
Stronger.
Which we were going to post the link to like the Help GoFundMe just to keep the storage, just to house the stuff now.
Yes.
Which we can. I know Instagram's weird about links, but we can put it in the show notes
we'll
too.
We'll find a way.
Different things. But yeah, I mean,
there will be a way.
It is a people. And I mean, when we started this, we thought, now our reach looks bigger probably than from Podbean's little metrics. We thought, oh, this will be a local, handful of the village will listen.
Oh no.
And we've got Australia, we've got Canada. And it's just, but it still feels like that village, and it still feels like that community. Yep. And that's was our goal. And because who gives a fuck if it's large?
Exactly.
It's what
it's strong.
Yeah.
Even if it's small, it's strong. Yep. Because what we're offering to people is honesty.
Yeah.
And personal, gut-wrenching stuff.
Yeah.
And questionable advice.
Wait, hello. Totally sketch.
Right. But do it.
Do it.
Bury yourself.
Because all you do is you stand to rebirth yourself out of that place into a stronger one. And I think that's what's important about Hecate. It's her message is you deserve to acquaint yourself, to familiarize yourself with your strengths, so that you own your sovereignty. And that can happen in a number of places. And it's probably cool if you find others.
But it's also, and you're not even talking about the physical.
Yeah.
It's your sovereignty on the other side.
Yes.
Because we all know when you're a witch, your light is a little bit brighter.
Yes.
Some can control it. Some can't.
It's the sexy, baby. It's the sexy.
But, her being a goddess of the spirit, and Underworld and all this good stuff. You, when you walk with that, I think there is a responsibility to work with that side. More, I mean, not just saying that, I mean, a witch, that's like the role has always been. Whether it's a plant spirit, a demon, a deity, no deities, whatever, yourself. Right. And that's always been the role. But I think with Hecate, it's kind of like, okay, well, we liked Cyndi Brannen's term, Deathwalker. Because you're in two worlds. You're in that liminal. You ride it.
You are almost
today,
Veilish by necessity because it's part of the citizenship of her.
Today you may be helping your cousin out, but tomorrow you might be helping the spirit that hangs out in your house, and you don't know. I mean, so you have to look at it like you said. It's not just 2-dimensional. It's deeper, but that sovereignty weaves itself through it.
It does
on either end of it.
She requires self-direction, which is why I appreciate she's not a hand-holder. She's one that will put the experience in front of you and say, you gonna stand in it? And I'm like, can I say no? And she's like, you can, but you own that consequence too. I'm like, yeah, okay. Because she's not gonna, or maybe she will, put things in front of me that are gonna be bloody.
Right.
And hurt.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I will emerge from that on the other side having learned a skill, having learned more about me, even if it means I learn things very painfully.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just have to face it.
Yeah.
And it's better if you do. And I think that's another thing that you have to remove, that idea of the Abrahamic religions of punishment and consequence.
Sure.
You are your own governor. You're the one who I don't believe in the whole threefold comes back, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah, that's
I also believe,
yeah.
why waste your energy on trying to hex or curse somebody that cut you off in traffic?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're fine. You're pissed, but that's cool. Middle finger works. That's a curse in of
that
itself.
Works,
yeah.
But at the same time, when somebody's harming you or bringing harm and you have to do it, it's the same thing as trying to heal or prosperity. You accept those things. I mean, I always feel like when you curse, you're giving a part of yourself, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But any magic does that.
Yes.
And you have to be comfortable with that.
Everything
I
has
don't
a
regret.
cost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Things cost things. And it's the price you pay.
But don't overlook the benefits and the rewards either.
Of course not.
Because
I'm
she's
not
showing you something that you didn't know about yourself.
But if you decide, I'm going to do this.
She's taking you to school. You just have to pay the tuition.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, it's not that like Christian idea of I'm going to be punished for doing this or I'm going to be rewarded for doing this. It's all self-governed and it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's what she wants. That's what she expects. And take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, she'll find somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She will. Yes, she has all these very specific aspects of her, like, let me say it again. Protractor. Oh my God.
Protractors.
Loves geometry.
Yeah.
No.
It's very sacred.
Protector
of
mothers and children.
And any of the marginalized.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And those who are transitioning between genders, those who are transitioning between a job and a career. I mean, these can be subtle differences. They can be very overt differences. Yes. For me, at least, she is the constant state of becoming. Mm. She's the eternal and infinite now, in my mind. And she lays the groundwork and creates those theaters of change. And that's what she does. So why not then call in a specialist, the strong female archetype like Lilith? Mm-hmm. Why not bring in another deity who promotes magic and understanding magic, like Odin, at all cost, magic. And each one of these are specialists, tutors to us, her children as witches, for us to learn from. Because she presides over the changing of you.
It's like a current, that feeling of that constant movement.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the same thing with each other and the community, like the classes you would hold and stuff.
Yeah. Theaters of becoming.
Yeah. And I do want to touch on, which we might do it this one or we might do it next one, when we talk about her symbolism, the keys. We talk about those. We talk about the dagger. And then we also talked about
her torches.
And so you broke it down last year.
In last year's Hecatesia.
Yeah. You broke it down into like, what tool are you right now?
Yes.
And at the time, and I'm still especially my familiar is always like dagger.
Yeah.
Whether it's protection, piercing,
everybody loves
expiration.
the sharp and pointy stuff.
Right. And the torch, I've always felt like the key represents me because I'm always looking to unlock. And I mean, that's why we do the paranormal investigations. That's why we like eat up everything that's cryptid. And like just the unknown.
Not only that, but it's like you are the key. The key is knowledge, and that is within you. You know it already, even if you don't already know it.
Right.
And it's
unlock
her job.
Yourself.
Yeah, it's her job to be like, you got that already.
Yeah.
Like, go search for it.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving you anything that you don't already possess.
Yeah,
but I might help you find it. But you're finding it.
So if then we are saying that the mortal experience, where we are incarnate, this iteration of us that is in a physical body, in a physical
squishy
form. Right, the squishy. So then we can say that this life experience in this world as mortal forms is in the strophalos. It is the wheel.
Yeah.
Our life experience is that circular and
labyrinth,
spinning maze.
serpentine.
And the choices that we each make in that process. And sometimes we'll be at the center where it moves the least. Sometimes we'll be clinging to the outer edge and going, holy shit, this is going really too fast.
I shouldn't have ate all those funnel cakes.
Shouldn't have. Should have just stopped at once.
Yeah.
You know, and
who put this thing together?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a very iffy carnival ride.
Very sketch balls. I'm getting super scared. But
not sure about the guy who's operating it over there.
You know? But then the tools that she gives us to navigate the strophalos, right, are torches, keys, daggers. And even at times are we also the strophalos that others learn themselves in.
Man, you're the wheel, man.
You're so the wheel, dude. I like your curves. Yes.
Are you a labyrinth? Because I'm fucking lost.
I think that's great. But, you know, we also take turns being her shade garden. We take turns being the psychopomp, working with the others. And so we are her little manifestations. Yes, we're the pets. We're the little rats dropped in the maze, you know. We are her pets. And I love doing it, man. And
right.
In one day, we can be the key, the torch, you know, and
the pointy thing.
But we can also be the snakes that encoil her arms. We can be the skull upon which she stands. Believe me, I've felt that a time or two.
Those are called migraines.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Maybe I'm just like biased because I've been her child for so long that I don't know. I guess I would have to have more conversations with others who devote the way that we do. It's at the depth that we do, because I would love to know what rigors they are put through. What are they asked by her to do? And
which this is a good platform to do that.
I think so.
Because you can comment on any of this. You can email us because we want to know.
We do want to know, because
absolutely.
We don't just want to hear ourselves talk.
Yes, we do. Well, them too, though.
Yeah, and I think this is a good introduction, not just to Hecate, but like through our eyes and through our workings, because we're offering something that you can't get on Google.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds pretentious, but I mean, you're getting our 3 experiences. We want to hear yours.
Yeah.
But this is not like Wikipedia. This isn't do this. This is her stone. This is her plant. This is...
Well, we're role modeling. And I think that what's important about your podcast is that you are role modeling, having that conversation with other practitioners, because we all are solitaries first. None of us, next to none of us, coven up first, and then...
I mean, we'll sit at a bonfire on Samhain and all do our own offerings and not say a word to each other.
Yeah.
But we're all moved to do what we do.
Yes. Yeah. Together. And I think it's an excellent example to them that are out there listening to this to form a group and see if you don't learn some really cool shit about other people's practice that you can go, you know what? I'm totally going to try that shit.
Yeah. And not to keep summoning Cyndi Brannen, but I think she said it perfectly. And we had it was so weird because we had said it when we started it. We wanted to feel like a conversation. And she said, I felt like I was sitting in on a conversation with you two. And like, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know everything.
We're inviting eavesdroppers.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we
Come
want.
on.
Because not everybody has the village near them, or they don't know where it is.
Right.
Or they want to find it. And if
They
we're
can
just
start it.
if we're just weaving the liminal with everything else, come find us. We'll find you.
Let this podcast be the instrument of your change.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we'll talk about Bigfoot. But I mean, you know,
why
it's
not?
whatever.
We're in North Carolina.
Yeah,
Sasquatch happens.
Yeah. We'll go find one.
You should. Well, I
think they're very
that
liminal.
one.
Murphy
Sasquatch. I know Murphy Sasquatch. Should we?
How did she show up to?
Okay.
What happened was
actually, I would love to hear both of your stories.
You kind of heard. Well, yeah.
Have they heard?
Yeah, I remember.
I think we've sort of talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
But
in the first episode, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit.
But we can reiterate it because I'm sure we didn't go into the detail there.
Well, I can give my big fat animal my owl story, because that's how I knew I was different, and that shit was changing for me, and that I had more power than I thought I did, which is what her message largely is. You have power. Let me help you learn yourself and how to use it.
3rd grade in Massachusetts.
Oh, damn, that's a throwback.
Oh, back in the way, because I was 8 years old. And
now this wasn't during the witch trials, right?
It might have been.
Okay.
Dates and faces
How old are
have
you?
been
No, I'm
changed
kidding.
to protect the
Couple 100 years old.
Actually,
I bet like you're like the ageless, like
I'll
it's
take
like
that.
you've been around for
I'll take that.
like centuries.
Well, what's different about my brain is that it's all incoming, right? I don't purge files, so I've got this like database, which is why I think I have migraines, because my brain is swelling.
It's so overloaded
with all of these files. It should have 404'd by now, but didn't. So here it all is, jumbled and chaotic. But I was growing up in a hellacious family situation. And really, really loved school. School was where I learned that I could get away safely, and there were actually people paid to be interested in my growth. Bizarre, but it worked. So we're on one of our notorious 3rd grade field trips, which included things like doing grave rubbings in graveyards.
But you said grave robbing, like
That's a
4th grade. That's a 4th grade trip.
Well,
that's amazing.
I was a fast learner. They took me early. But we went to this, what is basically a raptor center equivalent, but it was like an ecological sanctuary. So here we are, 300 3rd graders from my school, because I grew up in the city, and we're all in this giant green field with some hills and trees off in the far distance. So it's this gigantic meadow, and we're all in a circle. Not pagan, right? Just like all of us.
This is 3rd grade shit.
Out in the middle of the woods.
Chanting 8-year-olds in
New
the
England.
woods.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way it could have gotten more pagan is if we were dirty, sweaty, and naked.
Yeah.
You know, because that would have been pagan as fuck. But, so we're holding hands, and I was a very chaotic child. Just looking around, checking it out. I know. Couldn't stand still.
I'd be the witch of the woods.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, totally. So, unaware of what the other kids are doing, I'm like daydreaming across the diameter of this circle, you know, over these kids' heads, and I see this dot getting closer and larger, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I keep watching it. I'm like, does anyone else see that? And so this dot becomes a pterodactyl, right? This fucking giant,
man, you are old.
enormous
No,
bird. Yeah! 3rd grade field trip.
BC.
So this pterodactyl gets closer, and it's silent. No one is alerted. Not making a sound, and I literally start yelling, does anyone else see this?
Hello?
So I'm freaking out because it's approaching me in like slow-mo, and it got closer and closer, and I said, you know what? Yeah, this is meant for me.
It's gonna come pick me up.
So I throw my arms up in the air, and I say, take me! Right?
I mean, as you do.
Yes, as one would, right? 8 years old in a grassy field with 300 of his closest friends. And the pterodactyl lands on the arm of the person standing next to me.
And it was
a fucking great horned owl. And it lands on the sleeve, you know, the protection sleeve, the guard that they have on their arm. And the dude, the bird wrangler, the raptor,
bird man.
Yeah, the bird man, the raptor wrangler, looks down at me like, what the fuck? And I was like, I felt like instant Dorkosaurus Rex, right? Because this dude's looking at me like, take you where? And I was like, But I realized that, I mean, here I am decades later, centuries later, and I can still see this great horned owl silently coming across the circle for me. Mm-hmm. And I went so willingly, so ready.
You gave it up so quick.
I gave it up.
Right.
The Pandissa was
and that owl's
Hecate.
Like, wow.
Yeah, like,
okay.
here's an eager beaver.
Right.
Anyway. But yeah, that was my first big fat animal omen, a BFAO.
And I'm sure you declared more than you realized that in your 3rd grade self.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
of course.
Like, okay,
but
gotcha.
Be aware that great horned owls are 4 feet tall. Their wingspan is
huge.
So
huge.
Yeah.
So today it would be like a pterodactyl looking thing to you in relation to your size. But when you were in 3rd grade,
I was even smaller than this.
I'm sure it would have could have picked you up.
Of course it could have. And I threw my arms up in the air to be taken, which is just indicative of my willingness to go. My willingness
somewhere else.
Somewhere. Anywhere. And granted, my childhood was horrific, and so I was ripe for the picking, and I'm so grateful. So absolutely grateful.
That you got picked.
That I got picked by her, and I saw that owl as her emissary. And, you know, later on in my childhood and in my adolescence, I can see now the different, you know, pins that were placed on my timeline where she let me know. It's not always this slam between the eyes, obvious and evident moment where you know it's her.
Right.
There are suggestions that it's her. There are circumstances that she will create, and she picks liminal times. You know, me in this circle where we're supposed to be paying attention as a child, where I'm the only one paying attention to her message, not the bird handler's message, to her message. And other places where I'm supposed to be thinking and doing some way else, but she's got my attention. That's how I know.
That's so weird, because hearing that, it sounds so parallel to what, like, growing up and having issues at, like, a young teenage where, you know, I would go out into the woods by myself and, like, my version of praying. Whereas, like, I was trying to experience anything, and I just would be, and I didn't know that was meditating. And that's what I was doing. And I would call out for something to show itself, to bring itself. And that's when I started hearing from Ava. And when I look back now, it's like, oh, fuck, duh. I was given that emissary. It's like, here you go.
You were available and listening.
Right, and I can look back to every single thing. Where I'd sit was a goddamn 3-way crossroad in the middle of the woods. Of the little paths we made for dirt bikes and 4-wheelers. And there's all these little nods where I feel like, God, if only I'd have done this sooner. But, you know, it
happens
on the path.
As you are able to understand it.
And I grew up in a Christian household and always went to church, and I had always considered myself a Christian, but I never got out of it what I get now. I felt abandoned. I felt lost, and I felt like this isn't. So when you go to reconcile that, and then you drop it, and, you know, I studied other religions, and that's, you know, reading the Bible is the quickest way to become like an atheist agnostic person. If you have any sense of morality. But still, I went through my early years with everything, and Ava was always there and always like the one to like rely on when I felt like there was nothing. And I remember we had that, like I mentioned in episode 1, like a spirit in the house. And like we talked, my 101 idea was, I'm going to have to Google this because maybe we can cleanse the house. And of course, even now you see the sage stuff, which is not, you know, it's called smudging, but that's not right. That's a ceremony that we're not involved with. And but what we meant was cleansing.
Burning herbs and incense and using that to kind of initiate a change of magic in a space.
And, you know, now we call it cleansing. And I prefer to use mugwort or lavender instead of sage. Especially, it's one thing when you have sage in your herb garden and you're growing it, but like we would urge you with the Palo Santo and white sage to not buy those. Because we've decimated that and we're taking on stuff. But know what you're doing and why you're doing it. There's no reason to feel bad about if you were misinformed or didn't know, but it's the learning and the growing, which again is all connected.
Differently because you know
differently. and then helping spread that. But so we did that. We cleaned the house. We burned sage because this spirit was fucking with our animals, not in a bad way, but it's scaring the shit out of them. And there's so much on ghosts and paranormal stuff, and I had never seen Hecate's name before, and I had looked at occult and witchy stuff. I ate up Greek mythology in middle school, but I never heard her name, at least that I can recall. It was just weird. And so her name pops up, and it sounds like an old companion or something that it's like, that name sounds familiar. I've never heard of it. So we do it, and I'm like, well, I'm going to leave the sage stick as an offering, but I feel like I should leave something else. And there was this pull, and Ava's like, do it. And I'm like, I'm going to sit out and meditate, and I'm going to hold 3 keys. Because skeleton keys I've always loved and been drawn to.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm holding them, and it's dead silent. And I'm like, I can feel a change, but it's okay. I don't know. So I left the keys. I left some lavender and honey mushrooms. Again, my own kind of thing. And I'm like, this is not happening. This is not real. Like, nothing's going to come of this. Like, but whatever. We'll see. It couldn't hurt, right? Oh my God. What am I doing?
Yes.
Am I pledging myself to something that I don't really even... So then I go to bed, and that's when I'm awoken to the owl / laughter / coyote. And I remember walking outside, it being silent, the owl's gone, and I was like, that was it.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
That was the stamp
Something
of approval.
Responded.
Yeah.
She responded.
Yeah.
And after that, I have not looked back. And it's been a constant forward pursuit. And everything from, okay, I'm going to buy a statue. Let me do this. To like crazy shit. To, like I said, I went a couple years without feeling like I could hear my familiar and Ava and all that stuff. But it wasn't until I felt comfortable and sound and where I stood, where it's almost like that connection was there again. It's like, well, I have to learn how to build this bridge. It used to just be internal monologue and thought and talking to this thing that had been there since I was little that scared me at first. And I said, like, what is this? And it was always demon. And I was like, from a Christian thing, it's like, oh, fuck, I'm possessed. But it's like, but I literally was and am. And I'm cool with it.
You're cohabitating.
But then, but then when you realize, like, the idea of demon as guides and teachers.
It's a Greek word meaning spirit.
Right. And before it was demonized, quotation marks, into what it is, there's a reason they're scary and you don't want to work with them. They're knowledge bringers.
Yes.
She's a torchbearer.
And if you're not ready...
She's like a, what is it, a Lampady or whatever?
Yes,
like
Lampedia.
Yeah. So it's all tied in with that. And it's all like, okay, well, all the stuff you questioned and thought was wrong, I'm going to show you why. And I'm going to show you the stuff you longed for and why. So
let me set fire to your awareness because I'm going to be bringing some knowledge.
Yeah.
It was lit.
Right, it was lit. And so yeah, that's just, and then I was led to the shop, and then it's all history now. It didn't come when I thought it would. Why would her name pop up when I was looking at ghost removal? Like Ghostbusters, you know what I mean? Why? But I know why now, but at the time, front page Google, Hecate should not be hit number 3.
Yeah.
But for me it was.
Yes.
Because it was like, it's time.
Yeah.
It's time. And you're worried about this, but let's do something different. Like, let's talk to it. Let's work with it. This is what you've wanted. And I never used to be able to communicate with Ava directly until I did a form of scrying.
Right.
Before I knew about Hecate, before I knew about witchcraft and all this, it was, how can I further my psychic abilities?
Sure. How can I grow?
Without Mat Auryn's book.
Yeah.
So that was my way, and it was like the door opened. I got the name, and it's crazy, and it's been this like journey where you feel like, oh fuck, like this can't be real, right? It's too fantastical.
And understand though, and I think that a lot of people can't tell the difference between instinctive fear and acculturated fear because instinctive fear comes without words or explanation. It's a deep feeling that you cannot dislodge.
Yeah.
Acculturated fear is a fear that someone's watching and disapproving.
Sky Daddy.
Well, yeah.
That's kind of the idea as well.
Right. So when you say to yourself, I didn't see that, I didn't believe that, I'm just tired, or I haven't eaten today. That's the voice.
There's not somebody in my car.
Right? I might have some peanuts in the seat of the couch. But it's that comes from, the cultural setting of Christianity that tells you must go to the designated intermediaries, their priest class.
It's all control.
To know the thing, and don't trust yourself, don't trust what you see, what you've read. I mean, that's all, if you're pursuing sovereignty, if you're pursuing, a self-determined lifestyle, that is sinful. And so they build into their mythos that you must go outside yourself to know what you know.
Yeah. And that's why when we grew up, the bullshit we always heard was if you question anything, That's how the devil gets in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now you're like, door's unlocked.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Come on. Here's some mugwort. Let's smoke this.
But, so there's a difference. It's like, it's the complete opposite. There's keys, there's torches, there's guides, and there's the opposite of what you know, in a society where we're from is that locked, inaccessible, not powerful, powerless. Yeah. Because they don't want you to have a voice. They don't want you to have that power. And that's why the witch has always been demonized. And that's why it's the fucking patriarchy, man. Yeah. And totally religion is rooted, it was born from that. Yeah. It's not the other way around.
And asking questions is villainous. Mm-hmm. It is a undesirable trait, you know, because it's an anarchy to their control, you know. I want to hear more about
about me.
Your relationship with her. Okay, how it began. I want to know what your mile markers are for how you've changed and revisited some chapters with her that now have a different dimension to them, and also the tools and things she puts on your path for you to use.
It's funny because there are so many different points on my little map, as you want to call it, on my Strophilos, where she's sort of come to me before I really knew what I was experiencing or doing. And it's funny because I remember being in elementary school and sitting in the front seat of the car, my mother's driving me to school, and I'm reading a book of mythology, and all of a sudden a big white owl comes and hits directly
Did it have a letter?
on the windshield. I wish. I was hoping for my fucking Hogwarts letter, man. I was so excited. No, but it hits the windshield, and I look back looking for, you know, the owl to fly off or to be on the side of the road because I'm concerned. There's nothing
there. Because you hit an owl and you're like, oh, fuck.
And my mother was freaking the fuck out.
Oh, she saw it too.
Yes,
okay,
she
I was just
did.
making sure.
No, she saw it too, and she's like, holy shit, that was an owl! And neither one of us saw it. Neither one of us saw it fly off. Neither one of us saw it.
Now, where was this location?
It was right outside of my elementary school. In North Carolina.
North Carolina?
Yeah.
Because here, your barn owls are lighter, but there's no white owls here.
I know. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. It must have been a barn owl.
Because they have that white, like, alien face.
Very. Yeah.
And their screams, like their noises sound like
haunting.
Screams.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So a ghost owl.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ghost owl.
Because neither one of us saw it fly off, go anywhere, and it was sort of frightening.
Well, that's good that you didn't kill a real owl.
But this is frequent now that I have owls that are constantly running into the side of my car, and it's usually mom saying, "Hey, pay attention to what you're doing."
True.
Can you just fly beside me, or do you have to hit the car?
Must you?
But I never see them fly off. Right. Ever. I never see them on the side of the road.
It's weird. There's always these like kids that I hit with my butt, and I never see them.
Delicious.
But no, it seems like every other week you're telling me about some kind of fucking coyote or fox that ran out in front of your car, or an owl. So it's like, I feel like a car is a very liminal vessel.
It is. And I mean, we've talked before. Yeah. It really is. And it's...
and you plow through.
We've talked before about how sometimes I get like spirit passengers and stuff who want to come in and act like I'm their Uber driver. Yeah. And you know...
Aren't you though? Aren't you?
Hey man, can we run through Taco Bell real quick?
But I mean, I didn't have my, spiritual awakening until probably when I had a friend who was practicing witch, was a practicing witch in middle school. And, she sort of taught me what to do, and gave me my first books and things like that. And it really became sort of a communal thing between a few of us there. But I'm the only one that still practices that I know of that group, because I found something deeper and more devotional within my practice, instead of just, calling the elements and asking for things to happen. You know what I mean? And because I was working with her, and she seemed to be around every corner, but when I would go searching and looking for her in different places, and I would look for information, I couldn't find her. But
it's like, that's not the one you're looking for.
Right.
This is not the Hecate you're looking for.
Right. So, I'm doing this paper in middle school, I think in 8th grade or something. And they're asking us to write 500 words on, the etymology of our name or something.
Nice.
And, I start going back into, my given birth name, which comes from Greek and it means pure. And then it starts to go back and it links back to Hecate. And I'm just kind of sitting there awestruck about all of these different signs that I've gotten from her, all of these big fat animal omens.
Yeah, man. BFAOs.
And,
see, mine goes back to Jesus, which is not as cool.
Yeah.
But
he's an animal too.
I mean, the guy could turn water into wine. That's pretty badass.
I mean,
that's what they
say.
He makes bread appear.
I mean,
I can turn wine into bad decisions.
Hey,
that's transformational magic.
And so you're in grade
8, I think,
and you're already connecting dots that were like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But did you have any idea of like?
I was terrified of her, and I did not want to become a dedicant or work with her because I was like, she's scary. Mm-hmm. And, it's very much like you said, where I was in a lot of, bad home situations, and I would often...
Wait, I sense a theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
And it's funny, I was actually reading Cyndi Brannen's book, Keeping Her Keys, the other day, and she's like, so many of us find Hecate when...
In hours of need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
when we're in that deep, dark place.
And do you find, though, that now that you're older... I mean, you're not much older, because you're still a baby.
Yeah.
That... those formative experiences with her both ushered your leadership of you to create your own sotera aspect, your own savior aspect. But do you find now that it has those moments have more of a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional value to you? I mean, I feel like the wisdom, the gift of aging and hopefully maturity is...
I mean, I do my best, but...
But do you find yourself reviewing those moments with her?
Frequently, yeah.
For different layers of meaning?
Yes, absolutely.
When did you start to feel less afraid of her?
Oh.
What's today? No.
Yeah, right?
That's a really phenomenal question.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here all episode.
I'm here all day. Tip your way to 6.
There have been a few different times, and there's still that sort of fear, but it's also awe when I encounter her.
It's a different fear.
It's a different fear.
It's not fear of unknown, it's fear of...
And I would almost say it's when I became more comfortable with her, and when I actually started working with her, because she's sort of, just like you said, sort of demonized. Mm-hmm. And she's not all dark, and she's not all light, and she's not all good, and she's not all bad.
Yeah.
She's Hecate, and
she brings it.
Yeah.
She brings the whole game.
Yeah, and she's very stern, and she's very decisive, but I think as somebody who is like me, I think I need somebody who's like that to help kind of keep me in line, because sometimes I don't make good decisions for myself, and I need to know that, there's somebody else out there who's saying, I've got a lot more knowledge and wisdom than you do. Maybe you should do this instead.
All right, we need another owl. Throw it into her car.
Yeah. It's right around this time that all of these black snakes moved in under my mom's house.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I've got a black snake story. You've got the black snake story.
Yeah.
You've got one too.
Yeah. And they all still live under her house, and it was during this time that I started to experience a lot of paranormal things that, I couldn't explain and I was terrified of. And, as I'm seeing all of these omens from her, I see that, just like you did, that, she deals a lot with spirits and that she is a lot about protection. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, this is the point when I cannot run from this anymore. It's literally in my own name.
Now, do you think is like chicken and egg, which came first? The realization of her, or was it, hey, your doors are about to come open. Yeah. You're going to need a gatekeeper.
I think it's a little of both.
That would make sense.
Yeah, because I don't think it's either one or the other. I think it's both. And I think, when she came to me on my last birthday, and I was really struggling with a lot of abuse and the fallout from that, And she came to me as this caring, nurturing person and literally took my heart from my chest, which was painful, and showed me my pain and experienced that pain with me and told me that you are of me.
Yes.
And you should be proud of that. I think that's one of the moments that I've never experienced her compassion like that before. Yeah. And that was brand new for me. That was a complete 180 of the way that I've always seen her. And I've always known her to be very protective. And I know that she loved me, but it was never in a way that I saw her as comforting.
She doesn't coddle.
As that. No.
So then would you say that the reason why she intimidates, the reason why people are so fearful of her, and this too may be a vestige of monotheism in the subservient paradigm of deity worship, she's different. And I think maybe that she can be scary and intimidating because the first thing she asks you is the thing she always asks you, which is how to be your own savior, how to be your own leader. That's a terrifying question for people who are not used to trusting their own leadership.
Well, I was going to say,
it can be fucking terrifying for a goddess to say, hi.
I mean, she's holding a mirror and you're like,
she is.
Right. And you're going to look at all the bad shit you don't like about yourself. You can get rid of it, but you can work with some of it too.
Because that's not her stilo. She doesn't say you can lean on me. What she says is you can lean on you.
Right. And that, and in turn, you still find me. And that's the thing is because we make it her sound, we're not trying to make her sound cold. She is distant, but it's because she knows you're so much more and that you can find it. And what good and what strength do you really have if it's all just rewarded to you for no reason? For
some ambiguous gift of her magic. No.
And when I started, and it was like, okay, I went from not believing in any kind of deity to now I'm working with one. What the hell?
Yeah.
And I remember having a experience where she spoke to me, and it was almost like, because I remember my meditation and my question was, why weren't you there in the beginning? You know I struggled, and you know I did this, and you know I was, we would call the false god. What tied up into that manipulation. Yeah. And it was like, well, you broke away from that. And it was like, well, and there was some point where it's just all this questioning, it just stopped. And it was like, I have always claimed you.
Yes.
But you have not claimed yourself.
Yes.
But I've always claimed you and I've always been there. And it was like, oh, okay. Because then you realize like there's a safety in that, but there's also that unknown and that fear. She's
always there.
But
she's always present, but what she requires is for us to find us and lead from our wants and will and wishes.
It's almost a form of I almost want to say a test of we have to walk the labyrinth on our own. We have to prove that we can do it. And not only do we have to prove it to her, because I think that she knows that we can do it, and whether or not we can, we choose to do it is, there's no skin off her nose, go do what you want. But we have to prove to ourselves that we can do it.
I knew if I knew her at that young age, then I would have been looking through a lens that I had to shed myself, was that Christianized idea of how to approach deity and self-worth.
Yes.
And like I said, Ava came around then and was like, no, fuck it. Like, I know you're terrified of me.
Yes.
It's good. Be scared, but I'm not fucking going anywhere. And I remember I would I would pray and I would be like, please let this demon go. And she would laugh. And it's like, nope, it's not going to happen.
I've heard that laugh.
Right. And it's like, it's not going to happen that way.
Right.
Because
you're cute, but.
Right. Yeah. Get up. Yeah. And even in my darkest times where I'm like, I can't go on. It's like, you can. If it's spite, I don't give a fuck. You've got this strength.
Yeah.
And
you've done it before.
Right.
Now you're doing it again.
It's like once I came full circle and felt whole, and she felt whole, and we came back, I had this vision of this like rocky mountain. Her throne was like this stone, and everything was dark, and it was very liminal, and she was sitting there, and it was like, it was me and Ava.
Yeah.
And it was like, you are separate, but you're still bound.
Yes.
And bats are a big one for her, for the familiar, and they tie into, so it's like when I see an owl, it's mine. From like I can see it from Hecate.
It's for me.
But then I've seen other owls, and I don't have that feeling. I appreciate them. Like at my wedding, not my wedding, my cousin's wedding, in Oregon, my grandfather was always big on raptors and the raptor center around here. We'd always go. And so I've always equated owls and birds of prey and even songbirds to him because that's what's his thing. And so we went and we were at my uncle and aunt's house in Oregon. We were getting ready the night before the wedding, packing up the cars. And I look over and there's this little critter standing in the yard. And I was like, do you have owls here? And it was small, standing in the yard. And he's like, yep, and walks off. And I'm like, and I look over and it's gone. And I go with my camera and I can post pictures because my cousin later told me like how much this meant to her and she couldn't believe it. But she had a lot going on. And there was a little screech owl in the tree. And I got my brother to come over and then it was gone. It was like, it was for me, but it felt like him.
Yes.
So there's that, what you said, that instinct.
Yeah.
And I think she deals with those little synchronicities, those little things day to day that you become more aware of the more you do it. And so sometimes you do have that big fucking like, she's here, your breath's taken. Yes. You can talk about how your name came to you.
Yeah.
But, and then there's those other times where it's like, just the funniest, crazy little, like a snake might cross your path.
A subtle nod to us.
And you kind of perk up and you're like,
oh.
Should I be looking out for something?
Okay, heads up.
And then I think she goes off different gifts and abilities, and that's witchcraft in general. I know I always get so jealous of Cricket, which I know she's always saying like this is like it's one of those two double-edged like
it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's like okay, there is a benefit to this,
and
it's a blessing, but it's also a curse because
it's hard.
It's there, and I felt that way dealing with the inner issues I had with Ava in the beginning.
And see, I'm so jealous of that because I think that's incredible.
And I've always like, damn it, I've wanted to talk to spirits. I've always wanted to see them. I've always wanted to communicate with them, and I can't. Like, Hecate, what the hell? Like, why can't I? And I'm like,
she's like, what the fuck?
And she's like, but you have a demon that you like that you hang out with and like have gone through all this shit with. And so I know that, like you said,
you're just an ungrateful little brat,
right? And
who did not appreciate the gift you were given.
But I think it's like you have to, but you have to realize. Yeah, you can't hold yourself to somebody else's standard.
No.
And it's the self thing. It's like, that for somebody else might not bring about the same thing.
Yeah.
Me being able to have that other sight might not bring about. And she's like my medium between those two worlds. She's like, I take up this space. Let me be a bouncer for a minute. And so that's been my connection to Hecate because she's like a daughter of hers.
Yeah.
As we all are.
Yeah.
But she's my biggest connection to Hecate.
Yeah.
Apart with owls.
Yes.
There's that walk where it's like, okay, we still have that mom, that parent there, but yet we're doing our own thing. And sometimes, and less you feel like you're not in it. But like you said, sometimes you get that overwhelming, comforting, motherly feeling when you need it.
Yep.
And it's not even like, it's just, it's there. And it's it's warm and embracing. And then there's times where it's like, you're in the middle of the dark.
Yeah.
And you're out there and it's like, okay, I'm not going to even call on her because I know
she put me here.
Right.
On my own.
Yeah. And so I think
figure this out. That's
the benefit of having this communication with each other and talking your experiences because you don't feel abandoned and you don't feel like,
right.
And then you're not relying on written word from something that, like we were joking about fucking finding online and like, well, I felt her motherly and she's all of that. That whole kind of embrace and motherly thing is always in the background for me. It's powerful. Like you said, you feel it and it's kind of like that validation where it's just like, be still, you got this.
Yeah.
And I'm a part of you. You are part of me. And that's like where some of that strength comes from.
Yeah. So, you are sovereign. You are goddess-like. You are the person who puts value to the experiences you're having, good or bad. You can use them all.
Yeah, when you say her name, you've got your power behind it.
Yeah.
And you're that, I guess, torch for her and for yourself and others around you.
Well, in the torch, that metaphor is meaning that we are both beacons for other people to come to and trade experience with and stories with and insight with, but also the light that is cast onto the things around you, revealing them to be instruments for you, things to know, things to use. It's both, this coming to and eminence, radiance. And I don't say that in a love and light type way because I absolutely believe that the dark is radiant and luminous and gorgeous and absolute depth. I'm thinking about counseling the noobs. And I don't just mean witchlings that are like 16 to 18 years old. I'm talking about people who discover her later in life. It takes time to break out of what you can Google online.
Yes.
And moving past these,
we have a fear of fucking up and a fear of trusting that inner voice. And we don't want to do it wrong. And I speak from experience on this.
Sure.
Because, I was very much, by the book for a long time because I didn't trust myself. I thought that, I would fuck it up if I did something that was coming from me. And so to be able to break out of that sort of, and I feel like that's almost a leftover from the Abrahamic thing too.
Sure.
Where you have to do it our way and you have to do it the way that this book says.
The external guidance as opposed to the internal.
Yeah, like this is not going to work because I only have a red candle and it wanted a white one.
Right.
I'm fucked. I might as well not even do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's that too.
Yeah.
Because that's where everybody starts.
Oh, yeah. And I think you learn that, it's really not about that at all. I mean, one of the most beautiful, powerful scenes in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was in the first season where she is calling her familiar out in the woods with a piece of twine and a stick.
Which is what I did without the twine and stick.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
I stopped the show because I was, and listen,
I'm
getting weepy.
I was verklempt as well. I mean, I lost my shit and I was like, that's real shit. That writer is giving you the most rudimentary of tools to introduce you to more you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not something you have to be ordained to do. And it's not, that's not what witchcraft is. But I think what you find in the beginning is when you work is you want recipes.
Yes.
You want to do all this. And it's like cooking. In the beginning, you have to follow word for word, but then you're like, I can eyeball this. I got this. Yeah. And then you realize my instinct is better than any fucking... And it has its place because I don't think anybody would be there without...
That's how when I made beef stew the other night. Yeah. I didn't have a recipe.
You wing it.
Yeah.
And you trust in the winging it.
So many different versions of it with bourguignon and, all of this kind of stuff. I knew what to do.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Because I knew what I liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an exercise in trust. But I think it's fair to acknowledge that wanting a template to start with is going to give you different results.
Yeah. And there's literally nothing wrong with that.
There's not. Absolutely.
I think the best thing you could do is do something small and see it work, and then you energize that. Like, fuck, I am powerful.
And taking something that is written for the masses and personalizing it and customizing it is you trusting and capitalizing on the magic intrinsic to you. And I see that as absolutely fair, developmentally speaking, in terms of growing your craft and growing your methodologies with it. And so for the people who are listening who are just beginning to work with her or who want to work with her, sure, there's some tried and true ways to
get her attention.
Make yourself known to her. She cannot be summoned like some mongrel pop. That's Davy Jones. She, bidden or bidden not, she is always present. But there are some key giveaways.
No pun intended.
Yes. But coyotes yipping, owls hooting, bats. I mean, also notice that
seeing keys everywhere.
Those things are, even bats and owls are creatures that come out at dawn and dusk, liminal times of the day. I would recommend finding yourself asking, what are the liminal ways this can be? Like, if you look at time, the liminal times of day are dawn and dusk. If you look at even in your own personal rhythms, falling asleep and waking are times for, you to experiment with.
I've had some of the craziest fucking visions and heard the shit falling asleep.
Yes.
I've heard whispers in my ear.
Because you're open and available.
Yeah.
And the best way to be successful at any type of Hecatean magic is to be open, listening, aware, and innovative. I think the way to fail at Hecate magic,
just not doing it,
not trying,
right?
Not doing it, calling yourself insufficient or operating at a deficit, or I'm just not good at. Doubt is not her jam.
No. And you have to be a little bit
bold.
Yeah, because there's sometimes I do stuff and I'm like, it's just gonna fucking work because I said it would.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it does. And sometimes you have to be that source of, I guess, pride and inspiration for yourself.
Yes.
It doesn't mean, I'm the most powerful witch that's ever been.
Yeah.
But to yourself, yes. Because it's like, I fucking spoke this into existence. It's gonna fucking happen. I have a demon, spirits, a goddess, whoever to help me. But because I fucking spoke it, it will be so.
And I think she's pleased
with
us when we access that chutzpah and we find our zhuzh. I think she's proudest of us in those moments because she's like,
You can't be the mother of witches and be like,
yeah,
exactly. That's kind of cool. Like, no, she's going to be like, yes, that's what
she's like, you've hit the vein. This is the thing. Feel your magic. And when you hit that, it's addictive.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? But I think
and it's in those moments where you feel her so strong.
Absolutely.
Like coursing through you. It's like, you are an instrument of me. You're a tool of me.
Mama,
you're a tool
can
of
you hear
me?
You know what I mean? It's that.
Yeah. But I do think that's like a good place to see your witchcraft as not a series of spells, but like just everything you do and put out and try to do. Because that's really what it is. And that's what we've talked about before. You can do ritual and you can do things that were your pre-planned and all that. But sometimes the biggest thing is just maybe putting your hand in the dirt and whispering something or putting your foot down and like, I am not going to be moved. And that's witchcraft. Yeah. It's not just lighting candles and this and that. So do it when you feel it move because Hecate is not going to wait till the right time or this and that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's right just going to happen. When you will it to be.
She's just going to do it.
Some of my favorite magic is fucking protest magic and boundary magic and telling people
to fuck off.
Or go do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I think what pleases her most is when we walk through the world and take our magic eraser and erase the boundary. I think she is most pleased when we're like, when we know and realize that we are an effective agent of erasure and change. She's like, now you're getting it.
Right.
Now you get it, that you can change all of this, any of this. And I feel like as a mother, my job is done when I can see my children employing the root message, the template of change and taking initiative.
But also in their own little flair.
Yes.
And their own style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we talked about, like, you don't have to look or be a certain way to be a witch, to be Hecatean.
Right.
You don't have to be fucking white and you don't have to be male. You don't have to, there's no, that's what they're scared of.
Yes.
And so that's what, and that's what we say when she's the goddess of the marginalized and always has been. It doesn't matter where you're coming from.
Yep. She's a champion of the margin.
You have something to offer yourself. You're powerful.
Yes.
She delights in that, and she will guide you with that.
Like, I don't see her clapping like a little toddler given, like bristle blocks or something. But I do feel as though she is pleased.
I see the nice.
Yeah. Like, all right, good for you. Let's drink this.
Yeah.
But then there's also that, like, all right, so you ready to go further?
Yeah. And you're like, can't we just stay here for a minute? She's like, no, you cannot.
And we go,
Yeah.
The sled is actually, you're in the Underworld now.
Yes.
And it's fucking,
Yes.
There's further to go. So I think that's a good overview of where we started.
Yep.
Why we came together. Hell, why the podcast exists.
Yeah.
It's from
because it's very much almost like your shop where she was like, you need to go do this thing.
Yeah.
I know this thing ended over here, but you're not done yet.
Yeah.
Because she came to me and she's like, you need to do this. And it was like, I was obsessive. And it's like, who can I have? I cannot do this on my own. Who can I have? And it's like, I'm talking to him about this. And he's like, well, I don't want to invite myself, but...
I was like, I would totally do it. And then she was like, really? But I think when we started out, it was like, we'll do this local thing, like branching out of Laughing Brook and all this and that. And it was almost like, Mom was like, that's cool, because that's a good part of it.
Right.
But like, don't limit yourself.
Agreed.
And it's the same thing with the shop growing. I think we put ourselves in smaller boxes.
Yeah.
And, there isn't one.
Right,
and I think that ties into the whole feeling of that that tightness feeling of standing and looking at herself. Do that when you look at yourself. Look up to yourself and expect more from yourself. You don't have to push yourself beyond all these limits or get hard down on yourself, but just be self-empowered and don't let anybody, if anybody questions or says you can't do something, then take that spite that you're feeling and fucking use it. And don't compare yourself to anybody. I know when we said we want to have Gabby on and all this, it's like when I first started going to the shop, I was like starting out with witchcraft, and you felt like mom as a guide because you never, I would say, well, what about this? And you were like, have you ever read this book? And it's like you never gave an answer. And it was always like, I'll give you a nugget for a quest. That's right. And it's like me playing Skyrim. I'm not on the main quest. I've not even gotten 25% of it done. But I've done so many side quests. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like 90 hours worth of side quests. So, okay.
It's like me playing Legend of Zelda. I found all the Korok seeds. Have I defeated Ganon yet? No. But I found all 900 Korok seeds.
But let's be honest, though. Hecate is going to frustrate just the same way I frustrate people when they're like, can I please have a direct answer? No. You don't get
how you work.
You've got to struggle with this. I will give you resources to go find what it is I think you're looking for. And you may find some other really cool shit along the way. Yeah. But the role of a proper teacher, a proper guide, a proper mentor even, is one who presents opportunities and resources.
Well, and two, you never come back as like, come back and let me know if you've figured it out.
Yes. Yeah.
You're like, dude, what did you figure out? And I can learn something from it too.
I get super deep about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an addict. Yeah. I'm kind of parasitic, I guess. Because I feed off of
it's vicarious.
Other people's process because you are beholden to these beautiful spirits, these spiritual creatures that are becoming and unfolding and just becoming more them. And that's the art. And she's outfitting us with paintbrushes and oil pastels and canvases. And she wants to see what we make of it. And I feel that little pat on the head that says, that's beautiful, sweetie. I love
I'll put it on my fridge.
Good job. She's putting it on her fridge. Yeah. To be honest, every time we grow, she's putting it on her fridge.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Know what I'm saying? Well, I think that's a good first part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then we're about to get into what's coming up this month and what we're looking forward to, what you're going to do. You wanted to close with something.
I did. I do.
So let's do that.
Okay.
So you'll hear us next week too, but you prepared this.
I did.
And
so I was thinking about the way that we speak with deity, and sometimes it is with voice, sometimes it is without voice. Some of them are just internal conversations, but they can be external conversations. And when we do the Hecatesia on November 16th of every year, there is a standard invocation that I use. Because I love it and it hits all the points that I want to hit. But more commonly and more frequently, what we do is petition her, which is asking her to either set a scene for us to act within, a theater of change, or for her intervention on a thing, or for her nudging us towards which one of our skills to use in a certain situation. And I felt like because of the day-to-day climate that Americans are facing politically with our government and the upheaval, this is very much so a cataclysmic, cathartic change.
And it's not just our country.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
It's spilling out everywhere because I believe that the stewardship of this high leadership position that has been betrayed has fallout for us materially, for us in our identities, and for us spiritually, politically, governmentally. The United States is a world power, and there has been a miscarriage of justice. And I have feels about that.
I think we all do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because I feel like Hecate requires you to pick your side and stand your side. And so I would like to offer this petition just as an example of ways that you can speak with her. Does it have to sound like the way I've written it? No, absolutely not. But know that you don't solely have to engage with her in terms of making offerings. Mm-hmm. You can engage with her for guidance. You can engage with her for nurturing. You can engage with her for, you want to be my sidearm because I got to take a bitch to the hoop. You know what I mean? That type of situation. So I wanted to offer a petition that I wrote that speaks to the governmental chaos and upheaval that we find ourselves in. Mother Hecate Chthoniah, Queen of Witches, she who works from afar, Elder Titan, protector of mothers and babies, she who makes all possible, we invoke you here now to be among us, your 3 assembled children, Cricket, Josh, and Hedera. We beg you, hear our plea and bless our work. Through the luminous dark, your children know you see all. Know that you know all, and know that you preside over all transitions between what is and what will be. We beg you, please feel our will and be moved by the cries of our hearts. We, your 3 children, ask that you turn your steady and piercing gaze from our work toward the great and selfish evil that has found host in the heart and mind of a despot of untold wealth. Mother, through corruption, he was bestowed with authority, and we must halt his global influence. We implore you, our queen, turn your gaze to those whose hearts have rotted in service to him. Gaze upon them, mighty Aidônaia. See how they betray their oaths of this land. See how they pay deference to themselves. See how they work in service to their own aims and goals. See how he and his servants hold their importance above those to whom they swore service. See the suffering of those who have been cast aside both here in these lands and in those far away. Though we 3 that assemble here today see and feel and know your movements in our own workings and consciousness, we ask that you place your sight on the offenses laid against those who struggle in fear in the birthplace of your worship. We ask that you see how his will created harm to the people in your lands. See how the criminal selfishness of this despot unleashes evil in others. Mother, see how this atrocity in turn facilitates other atrocities against the people in your homelands. Evil overtakes his ideas, feeds his words, and informs his will. Millions of souls the world over have and yet suffer. Thousands die at his hands and his behest. We beg you, Mother Hecate, please hear us. We are your daughters and your sons, priestesses and priests of your truths. We are your torchbearers in this mortal realm. We ask your intervention for the millions whose faces will never be seen by this man. We beg that you intercede on behalf of the blameless victims of his tyranny, that you deliver them from this insipid and swelling evil. Death rips families from each other, babies from their mothers, people from their land. Please, Mother, free the world of this instrument of great evil. Hecate Atalos, merciful Queen, daughter of the night, she who shines from afar, she who changes the fates of stars and worlds and humanity itself. Please intercede on the behalf of love, stability, and peace. Please, Mother Sotero, spare the countless scared and suffering victims the world over from the madness and pain of this, the chosen agent of evil and death. Please give us, your children, whom serve the fates you assign us, the strength to mitigate this pain. And so saith I, Hedera Bindwood.
And so saith I, Bones.
And so saith I, Cricket.
In your name we thank you.
Hail Hecate.
Hail Hecate.
Hail Hecate. And fuck Trump.
Fuck Trump!
That's the patriarchy!
God, burn it.
Fuck it up.
Burn it all.
All right, guys. So we will see you real shortly because this is going to be a long one. And you get a bonus one next week. And it's more Hecate.
Yeah.
Aren't you excited? Because we are. All right. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
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 All right, so that's the end of the episode. We know you loved it. So next week we're going to have part 2, but real quick we wanted to say that as you heard in the episode, our favorite shop that Hedera owns and that we have come together around as a community, Laughing Brook Spellcraft and Ancestral Arts, did have a fire earlier this year. Through unfortunate circumstances, it's been hard to find a place to open up the new shop. It's still pending and liminal, but in the meantime, there is a GoFundMe page that we will put in the show notes and on our post on Instagram. So check that out because that is going to help pay for the storage of all the merchandise that she has for all of us witches around here. So we'd greatly appreciate any donation for that so we can get our community shop up and running. Like she says, community is a people, not a place, but the place does help. So we appreciate you guys and go check that out on our show notes. Okay, that's it.
Cursed is a bi-weekly podcast produced by Bones McWilliams and Cricket Word. The theme for Cursed is Voice of the Trees by Sun and Moon Dance. Check them out on Spotify, YouTube, or at sunandmoondance.bandcamp.com. Follow Cursed on Instagram, Twitter, and become a patron at patreon.com/cursedcast.
That's good enough.
I had a mouth full of tea.
I bet you did.
Because then she goes gulp.
Yeah. Shush. No, that's just for our background.
Shush,
just
girl.
To kill
Hush your mouth.
our background noises. That sound like wet and
swallowy.
Wet and swallowing.
A little swallowy.
We're making Mom super proud.
She's like, these are my priests and priests.
This is why I made you all sick for the last 3 weeks.
Woo!
Because I knew it was going to go this way.
Don't do that.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Sorry, man.
We need like an albuterol mist going on in here. Some Afrin.
Just release it from the ceiling like fire.
Yes, this month is sponsored by Afrin. Because I've been shooting that shit up quite a bit.